This week on World Traveler Cooking, we're going to render lard, or as they say in Bahasa Indonesia, minyak babi. Now, we're going to do this because pretty soon I'm going to cook a kind of cookie that requires this, although there are some substitutes, and I'll discuss that in that recipe. But this can be used generally as one way of rendering just about any fat on from bulk fat as you have it. So you can render tallow from beef, you can render chicken schmaltz, or duck schmaltz, or goose schmaltz, or whatever you like, more or less in a similar way, although I'll probably cover chicken schmaltz in another video. Why would you do this? Well, oftentimes if you're getting lard at the grocery store, it may be extremely strongly flavored, and learning how to do this yourself can give you a little more control over how strong you actually want it at the end. In general, a hotter temperature, faster render will lead to a stronger flavor, while a slower render will lead to a more mild flavor. So we're going to do a reasonably slow render here. And I'll discuss a few additional techniques that could be used kind of at this point. I'm going to do this in the oven, primarily because I've gotten used to it and I think ovens work great. But some people don't like doing these in ovens. In that case, you probably want to do it in like a slow cooker. You can do this in a slow cooker on very low heat, although usually people add a little bit of water just to kind of help with the heat transfer in those cases. So in the oven, usually don't add any water. It's actually real simple, real easy, and it's not too, it's in fact, as I say, really, really simple. So, as I say, do it in the oven. I'll go ahead and show you. Let's get started. So the first step is we are going to remove the skin, and we're going to remove any large pieces of meat. And so usually what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the meat because it's on one side. I'm just going to take a knife and I'm going to cut it off. Now, if you have these large pieces of meat here, you can use them in something else you're going to cook. So today I'm going to cook a spaghetti alla sassina, and I'll probably find some way to incorporate these because I don't want them to go to waste. So I'm just going to trim all the meat off, and then I'm going to trim the skin off. And then I will be back. Then, for the pieces where I've already gotten the meat and everything off, I'm just going to cut this into small cubes. Some people prefer to put it through a meat grinder, but if you do that, the pieces that you get out at the end, the cracklings, are much smaller. Often the pork lard is a lot more mild in those cases, but I think for baking cookies it's not such a big deal, especially if there's other flavors in the cookies. So we're going to go ahead and just cut them into small cubes like this. I'm going to cut them into small cubes here. And I'm just going to throw this in here. Now, in some cases you're going to find that the skin is really tough. In other cases you're going to find that the skin is really soft and really hard to get off. So I had trouble getting this bit of skin right here off. So in those cases, who cares? We'll just leave it on. So again, I'm just going to slice it, put it in cubes. And when I get all of this skinned and cubed, then I'll be back to show you how I actually do the render. The render is fairly simple. I'm just going to put it in the oven at 150 for an hour, and then see from there and see if it needs longer time. My oven's not very hot at that temperature, so 180 might be like 150 might be like 130. So I'll be back. Now that this is all cubed, I'm going to spread it out and I'm going to put it in the oven at 150 Celsius. I'm going to start with a cold oven Although you can actually, no, I'm going to start with a warm oven. So I'll turn on the oven, let it warm up for a few minutes, and I'll just put it in. Depending on how fast your oven heats up, the reason why you'd want to start with a warm oven would be if you're using electric. But if you have just a regulated gas oven without a thermostat, then probably put it in a cold oven. So, what you don't want is you don't want a lot of harsh heat burning the bottom of it before things heat up. So, this is actually taking quite a bit longer than I expected, which is good. The slower the render, the more mild the flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to stir this up. I think it's just going to take another maybe half an hour to an hour. It's only been going for 2 hours now. It's getting close now, I think. But this is the first time I've stirred it. The nice thing about using the oven method is you don't always have to stir it. If you're using a slow cooker, you do want to go in and stir it somewhat frequently. Now I'll put this back in the oven and we'll just let it continue to render. So now this has been in the oven for a little more. I think this is looking pretty well rendered. So the next step is I'm just going to run it through a sieve or a strainer into a container to store. And then we'll be done. There's not really much of a taste test to do, of course, with this. I'm not going to just taste lard. But you want to strain it while it's still hot. So this is borated glass, so it should be able to take the heat shock. So I'm going to just pour this through the strainer. Good so far. And then I'll just pour the rest in and I'll be right back. So here is our lard or minyak babi. There are a few little impurities that will settle to the bottom. I'm just going to let this cool in this borated glass souffle dish. And I'll cover it so that critters don't get in, but this is basically what we got, and I'll use this for baking probably tomorrow. As for these little crispy little pieces from the fat, in the US they call them cracklings. They're really good. You can snack on them, but they're really high in fat. My favorite thing to do is I'm going to take them with me to noodle places, and I'm going to put them on my noodles when I order noodles out. They're really, really good on these Asian sort of chicken noodle bowls. So definitely don't waste these. They're really good, as a condiment. That's probably the best way to eat them.